You've spent 30 minutes arguing about what to call a food. You know you're right. You've always known you're right, and somehow, that doesn't matter at all. That's the first sign something else is happening. Most arguments exist to resolve something. One person has information, the other person doesn't. Or two people see a situation differently and need to find common ground. The disagreement ends when the question gets answered. That's how it's supposed to work. But some arguments don't work that way. The question gets answered and the argument continues. You address one concern and a new one appears. You bring evidence and it gets dismissed without explanation. The topic shifts, but the disagreement stays. At some point, you stop talking about cheese sticks and start wondering if you're losing your mind. That shift, from resolving content to controlling interaction, is the thing worth understanding. There are 3 things to watch for. First, new objections keep appearing after you've addressed the previous ones. The focus changes, but you never reach the end. Second, the other person stops seeming genuinely interested in the answer, but they don't stop participating. They're not trying to learn something. They're staying in it for a different reason. Third, evidence that should close the conversation gets ignored or dismissed like it doesn't exist. When all 3 are happening, the argument stopped being about the topic a long time ago. So what is it about? Extended, trivial arguments create specific effects on you regardless of what you're technically discussing. You spend energy defending positions that shouldn't need defending. Simple things you say become contested territory. You learn that your observations are provisional, subject to challenge, subject to withdrawal of agreement, and you get exhausted in a way that feels wildly out of proportion to what actually happened. That exhaustion isn't a side effect. It's the point. When you're worn down, you're less likely to hold a boundary, less likely to call out an inconsistency, less likely to maintain a position that requires effort to defend. And the person on the other side learns something useful. Which approaches create the most friction? Which positions you abandon first? What it costs to keep pushing? Every time you defend something obvious, you reinforce a dynamic where your reality needs their approval to count. That's what the argument accomplishes. Not a resolution. A dynamic. Once you see that, the way you respond can change. The first thing is to state your position once. One clear statement. No elaboration, no preemptive defense, no supporting evidence for things that don't need supporting evidence. I call them cheese sticks is a complete sentence. It doesn't need a citation. The second thing is to treat continuation as information. When someone keeps arguing past the point where facts settled the question, that tells you something about the function of the argument. The topic stopped mattering. Notice what they do next. Do they shift to a new angle? Bring up something unrelated? Start questioning your memory of what was said? That's data. Third, stop defending. Not loudly, not with an announcement, not with an explanation of why you're done. Just stop providing more evidence, more elaboration, more justification. Exit the content discussion. The argument is no longer about the content. Fourth, if you need to say anything at all, use neutral language. Short, flat, no emotional charge. I see it differently. We disagree about this. I'm not discussing this further. These sentences acknowledge the disagreement without feeding it. They don't defend your position and they don't apologize for having one. And fifth, document it. Write down the topic, how long it went, how it ended, how you felt afterward. Do this over time, because the difference between an isolated bad conversation and a systematic pattern only becomes visible when you have enough entries to see it. And when your memory gets questioned later, which it will, you'll have something concrete to return to. There are also 3 things that reliably make this worse. Explaining why you're withdrawing because that explanation becomes a new topic. Apologizing for having a position because that signals your perspective needed justification. And arguing about whether the argument is pointless because that's just the same argument wearing a different coat. Here's the thing about repeated patterns. One difficult conversation might just be a hard conversation. Personality difference, bad day, miscommunication. But if the same dynamic keeps appearing across different topics, different days, different contexts, if you regularly end up exhausted over things that should have taken 30 seconds, that's not a coincidence. That's a method. The content is disposable. The dynamic it creates is not. So the one thing to carry out of this, when an argument continues past the point where it should have ended, stop asking yourself how to win it. Start asking yourself what it's actually for.